Yo, yo, what is up? I'm here today with the Minimalists, as they're called, and it is Joshua Fields Milborn and Ryan Nicodemus, and I'm honored to have you guys. I'm in Bali. Where are you guys located right now?
We're in Dayton, Ohio right now.
Ohio is on the map. That's what's up, guys. Happy to have you here. Happy to be talking with you for a couple minutes. And so you guys just put out a book, Minimalism, Live a Meaningful Life. Love to hear more about it. Who's it for? What's it about? Why'd you write it?
Yeah, those are some pretty expansive questions, but no, that we much like your story, we had this status quo life, right? You know, we had the ideal jobs and all the fancy things that come along with that. We had the big six-figure careers and all the stuff that was supposed to make us happy, but there was really just a lot of discontent in our lives. And so we decided that we needed to find a way to live more meaningful lives, and we stumbled across this thing called minimalism, and it allowed us to sort of get rid of the stuff in our lives so we could focus on what was important, things like our health and our relationships and pursuing what we were passionate about, stuff like that.
Yeah, man. So essentially what we did with this book is we concentrated on 5 areas of life, and Josh just kind of mentioned a few of them there, but it goes in order of health, relationships, pursuing your passions, and then growth and contribution in a meaningful way. But we just basically, kind of narrowed it down to those 5 areas of life. Kind of like Josh said, like you do, just teaching people how to live a more meaningful life. Those are the areas that we realized that if we focus on, we could live more meaningful lives.
Right on. And how'd you guys get to that point? Was there a catalyst or a breaking point that kind of took you from doing what you were doing to just saying, like, this is enough, I've got to make this change? How did that come about?
Yeah, I think for me it was late 2009. My mother passed away, and right around that time I was just starting to question everything. This term happiness kept coming into the picture. Ryan and I were always talking about happiness. We worked at the same corporation for a long time. We've known each other since we were like fat little 5th graders.
20 years, man.
Yeah, we've known each other for a long time. We're both 30 now. And so this term happiness kept coming up. And then my mom died, and I went to go pack up all her stuff. And then I realized I didn't need all her stuff. And I just got rid of it. And I realized I could do the same thing with a lot of my stuff. I was putting way too much value in the stuff as opposed to the things that actually were important in my life. And so I started sort of shedding some of the material possessions, and when I did that, it allowed me to figure out those 5 areas that Ryan just talked about. I was able to figure out these are the things that are important in my life. My relationships are important. My health is really important. And these were things that I know a lot of people, including myself, we forsake those areas in our lives, or at least I did for the longest time. And focusing on those instead of the stuff in my life is really what made a fundamental change in my happiness at the end of the day.
Yeah, pretty much the same for me, man. I mean, I've had the same kind of 6-figure job and working my ass off, and having everything I was supposed to have that society told me I was supposed to have, and experiencing the same discontent. And when Josh showed me minimalism, it showed me other people like Josh Becker, Leo Balta, and other guys that kind of dove into that stuff. What I really appreciated about those guys is they were doing exactly what they wanted to do, and they were living their passion, and that's what I really respected about it. And I thought, I didn't even think it just clicked with me, like all this stuff that I'm giving all this meaning. This is not making me happy. I make me happy. And it's funny because the book that we originally wrote, it was 300 pages long, and you can just taste the irony, right?
Oh yeah,
100-page book about minimalism. So that was ready to go in April. We actually held back the launch of that, and we condensed it down to those 5 areas of life, and that's the book that we have today. But yeah, we put a lot of work into it. It took a year to get there, and we're really happy with the work.
Right on, guys. That's great to hear. So on Sensify, a lot of the community here is fairly familiar with the topics that you guys are talking about. So health, relationships, growth, passion. What did I miss there?
Contribution.
Of course, meaning, right? That's what it's about, right? This is what we touch on over here. And what I'm excited to ask you guys about and find out more about is how do we look at that through a minimalist filter? How does that fall under the minimalist umbrella? Because I talk nothing about minimalism, although intuitively I've kind of figured out that in order to make this lifestyle work for myself, I do need to embrace some minimalist ideas, but it wasn't under the title of minimalism. It was just more of like, no, it makes sense if you're going to do that, you need to do this, you know? So how do these areas, these 5 areas, how do they fall under the minimalist umbrella?
You know, I think, especially in Western society and American culture, when you're living that quote-unquote American dream that we certainly fell into, you start accumulating a lot of stuff. And then you start giving a lot of importance to that stuff. You know, you get your identity becomes your stuff a lot of the time. You know, whether it's you have a 3-bedroom house, but you only have 2 people living in it. That was certainly my case. You have these luxury cars where you have these huge car payments. You're buying all the newest gadgets and toys and all these things. And our identity becomes our stuff. And when it becomes part of our identity, it becomes incredibly hard to shed that stuff. And it's a very pernicious cycle where you're going through just identifying yourself with your stuff. When in reality, I think we all realize, at least intellectually, that we are not our stuff. But until you realize that emotionally, it's pretty difficult to remove that from your identity. So I think the sort of decluttering aspect of minimalism is kind of the initial bite at the apple. That's getting rid of the stuff is sort of the first step for us, so we could focus on those 5 areas. Don't get me wrong, I think you can get rid of all your stuff and still be incredibly miserable. I don't think that's like the answer to everything. Yeah. I think you get rid of your stuff so you can focus on the things that are really important. And that's not always easy, especially at first. When you get rid of the stuff, you're forced to answer some pretty difficult questions, like what am I supposed to do with my life? What is my mission instead of just my career or my job? You know, what am I supposed to do now that I'm not focused on the stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, right on. So, getting rid of the stuff. So how would that translate? Let's say someone's like, okay, boom, this is starting to make sense. The stuff that I have isn't really who I am. But I think by the same token, a lot of people almost express themselves through their stuff. So it can go both ways in a sense, because they know this material life, the clothes that they buy, the sneakers they choose to wear, the products they choose to kind of sport, they almost feel like, no, that's them in a sense. Let me give you an example. I grew up listening to 90s hip hop, and it's reflected in the way I talk, it's reflected in the music I listen to, it's reflected in what I wear, in some of the things I do. And although that those things aren't me, it's almost a certain expression of self to be able to wear like a fresh pair of kicks, you know, and say like, no, these Nikes are dope, I love them. On one hand, I feel like I'm expressing myself, but on the other hand, I am caught up in some type of some trend of stuff. So how do you guys take on that approach of like, okay, well here's the stuff that I think lets me express who I am versus just getting rid of everything to express who I am?
Yeah, I think that having any of that stuff is okay. I mean, I'm not condemning having a TV or a car or clothes or a brand new pair of Nikes. I think it becomes incredibly problematic when we start to give too much meaning to that stuff, because we have to realize at the end of the day, that's not who we are. And you're right, that's difficult, because if we let it become us, then that's exactly what it does. It becomes a part of us. There's nothing wrong with having those things, but wrapping up your entire identity into that is really going to prohibit you from growing long term if that's who you are as an individual.
Right, and another thing too is you got to think about, you know, there's a lot of people, especially in America, who have racked up all this debt trying to get all this stuff, thinking that that's what's going to make them happy, and that's really what who this book is for. It's for people who have, you know, kind of racked up that debt and kind of put their identity with all their stuff and really connected a lot of emotions with that stuff to the point where, you know, it's dragging them down and the debt is dragging them down. That's all I got.
Right on. So what comes up for me is meaning. It's something that I felt like I was lacking in my life 3 years ago, 4 years ago, where I was doing all the things that I should be doing. I had the American success, but I knew intuitively what's going on. Something's missing here. And what I felt like was missing was, one, excitement, but on a deeper level was meaning, because the excitement came and went, the happiness fluctuated, but the meaning, it just wasn't there. And
Right.
so live a meaningful life. I mean, talk a little bit about what that is. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I was doing all the right things, pretty much like you guys were. So it sounds, and I thought I should have this meaning, but I didn't. So how do you kind of guide someone in that place right now who's working, this 60-hour week? They're not lazy, they're working their ass off, but there's a big discrepancy between where they currently are and their ideal future. They don't know what path to pick in life because, there's so many options. It's the paradox. There's more options than ever before, and all these options are making people anxious and uncertain and afraid to pick a path, and they get settled into a career and they feel like, scared to leave this job or career because uncertainty is, it's going to bite them in the ass. It's going to freak them out a little bit. So speak to that. Someone who's currently in that position right now, how do they start to just make this transition into a more meaningful life?
So the important part here is to set the right expectations, right? I mean, Josh and I didn't just see the minimalist site or the minimalist thing and then come up with a website and quit our jobs. There was some strategic planning that we had. So we started to pay off debt. We started to just get rid of a lot of the things that were holding us back from being able to quit our jobs, and that was basically making us rely on that financial security. So we knew that going into this that we probably weren't going to make as much money as we did in our current or our older jobs, which we don't. We make significantly less, but we planned accordingly to that. And we get asked that question all the time. It's funny because people, how do I quit my job? How did you guys do it? How did you guys quit it and become publishers and become millionaires? And that's not how it works.
Yeah.
I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't.
And Jacob, you said something that really stood out to me. You were asking about meaning and finding meaning. I think people can find meaning in doing what they do. And in the book, we talk about there's sort of three things. I can identify your level of happiness by what you call what you do. If you say you have a job, I know you're probably miserable. If you say you have a career, I think you're probably stuck. I think a career is like a really dangerous thing. We get stuck on that corporate ladder. That's what happened to me. 4 or 5 promotions in, you get so high up on the ladder, you're afraid to jump down because you're scared of it. And then the third thing is you have your mission. But I think the two can coincide. I think you can have a job/career, and that can also be your mission. I know for me that wasn't the case, and that really brought us to sort of the last 2 sections in the book are about growth and contribution. I think the only way you can really feel fulfilled long term is if you're growing, meaning you're constantly improving every day. And you're contributing beyond yourself. You're contributing to other people in a meaningful way. And whether that's locally, we do some stuff with soup kitchens or Habitat for Humanity, or contributing, on the web, whatever. You can contribute beyond yourself and help other people, and that's how you're really going to feel fulfilled if you're growing and you're contributing.
Right on. Yeah, I love to look at the idea of doing what you're great at or doing what you're good at or what you'd like to be great or good at, because you're going to have some level of confidence, and at the same time doing what you're passionate about, what excites you, because you're going to have some level of enthusiasm, and then combining the two, and because you're doing what you love and you're doing what you're good at, you already enjoy the process, but doing it for something greater than yourself and some level of contribution to something other than yourself. So that's kind of the paradigm that I found to work really well for myself, and I'm happy to share that with people who think it may work well for them. And it sounds like you guys are on a pretty similar page. And so the book, let's kind of wrap it up. And the thing that I have in mind right now is that the book almost seems like it just encompasses it all as far as like creating a life, right? You really touch on all the big topics on health, relationships, growth, contribution, meaning, and I think that's great. Which parts of the book resonated most with you? Like which parts with each of you separately, right? So which parts had the biggest impact on your life, and where did that come from? Why did that arise?
For me, it was relationships, because I put so many relationships off when I was working my 9 to 5. I mean, it was okay, right? My mom understood that I didn't get to see her. She lived 15 minutes away from me. I may have seen her 6 or 7 times a year, major holidays, and then, sprinkling a couple other times. But she understands, right? I'm working hard, I'm making money. Oh, by the way, I'm going to school. She gets it. I'm busy. My dad gets it. My grandma gets it. I mean, at a certain point, I realized that I had to stop telling myself, eventually I'm going to get around to seeing those folks and actually see them. And I realized that if I was going to stay in that corporate world, that I was not going to be able to develop and grow those relationships like I wanted to.
Yeah, I think for me it was health. I mean, they all really resonated with me, but health was sort of like a really good foundation, changing my health. I used to be 70 pounds heavier than what I am now. I'm 30 now. I'm in the best shape of my life. And that was something that was like a really good foundation. I needed to change that. Not because I wanted to look better necessarily, which is a great benefit, but I wanted to feel better. I kind of felt like crap. And if you feel like crap, it's hard to really focus on any of those other areas in your life. So when I was able to really improve my health, physically, I felt better, and it made everything else, it enhanced everything else in my life.
Right on. Yeah, I was just reading a Kindle preview of a book called The Happiness Advantage, and it's by a Harvard professor who says that we have the formula for happy and success backwards. We think that success is what's going to bring us happiness. And if you look at why are all the Harvard students miserable? They're working their asses off. They're doing all these things, but a large percentage of them are depressed. Why is it? And we have the formula backwards. It's that happiness is going to bring success, not the other way around. So it sounds like you guys are living your happiness, and I'm sure there's much success to come for you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, man.
Right on. So if people want to find out more about what you guys do, find out more about this book, how can they do that?
Theminimalists.com.
Okay.
Plural. Because there's 2 of us.
Right. The whole minimalist thing, I think maybe we could, get rid of one of you guys at some point. I don't know. How does that work? Perfect.
That domain's already taken.
Right on, guys. Well, hey, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today, and look forward to introducing this to a bunch of people in the Sensophy community and having you engage with them and take those relationships from there.
Thanks, Jacob. We really appreciate it, man.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.